to about the person who established this award, because you especially appreciate this. Charlie Grawemeyer was probably the person who figured out how regular people can make money out of investing. He was a genius who everyone remembers primarily for wearing threadbare brown suits every day to his tiny little office, which was a basement. He never would buy a new car. He drove the same car all his life. And most people did not know that Charlie was extraordinarily wealthy. He was on the board of trustees of Louisville Seminary for 30 years. He was on the board of trustees of University of Louisville. And at some point along there, he sat down with the two presidents of those schools. This is 30 years ago. And he said, I want to make a difference. I want to encourage great ideas. And so Charlie put together this scheme. Books would be chosen by academics from a huge stack. And already, as you noted, we're at work for next year, gathering the books. They're nominated by publishers, they're nominated by fellow writers, by academics, and a large academic group is going through those books in the first call. They will eventually get it down to 8 to 10 to 12 books that a very small team of specialists will sit down and read. We lock them in at Laws Lodge on our campus, and they can't emerge until they come up with 4. That is their job, 4 books. That then goes to, this is Charlie's genius, lay people. He wanted any book that would win the Grawemeyer to be readable by regular people. He had in mind, incidentally, and this may have to do with something of the Union connection, the book he had in mind was Dietrich Bonhoeffer's Cost of Discipleship. It apparently had changed his life. And he wanted to encourage that kind of thinking that would be revolutionary in the moment. Well, all of these years we have been giving this award, and it is a venerable list that you are joining. I am astonished at times, being president of Louisville, to see the extraordinary brilliance and talent and dedication of scholars that parade through once a year. And we have a black tie evening, which is very similar to this, of course, with tuna sandwiches. It's wonderful, wonderful. I hate that you're going to miss that. I especially hate that our students will not have the opportunity to visit with you. Some of you may know that James came to our campus back in the 90s?
Yeah.
Mid-90s.
Yes,
I want to tell you something of your influence there. James rightly critiqued Louisville Seminary for saying that it wanted to move forward in areas of justice around race. And you rightly critiqued the seminary at that point. I think if that had not happened, we would not have had the Black Church Studies program that you witnessed, that you would not see today 30 to 35% of our student body African American from a variety of denominational backgrounds. A growing black faculty that is stellar, and keep your hands off. We worked really hard getting them, and I don't want to, and they're young, is the other thing. So we're hoping they'll be with us. I think your visit was one of the most important things to transform our school. And shortly after that, we had a program in anti-racism that began. It was repeated again 2 years ago. On our campus, we made it voluntary, against the wishes of our students that wanted it compulsory. By making it voluntary, not only did we have every student, every professor, we had almost 100% of our staff that came to it. And we had trustees, and we had members of the community as well. I think you can take a lot of credit for that, James.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to read to you the letter that Tyler Mayfield wrote to our Board of Trustees. Now, you will know what's in this letter because it tells you what the book is about.
Okay.
And Tyler, how many of you know Tyler? Tyler was here. He was here, yes. He is absolutely delightful, and he doesn't want to live in New York again. So I'm just saying. Between 1880 and 1940, nearly 5,000 black men and women were lynched in the United States. These terroristic events of white supremacy inflicted fear and death on black communities. It was a time of great darkness for the African American community. In response, African American Christians turned to their religion and to the cross of Jesus as a symbol of suffering, but also of profound hope. Jesus knew their suffering and was present with them in their sorrow, giving them power to overcome this terrible violence. The cross spoke to the oppressed in a unique and prevailing way as a place of redemption. Despite these violent killings and the centrality of the cross in Christian communities, the lynching tree did not occupy any space in the American theological imagination. In The Cross and the Lynching Tree, James Cone passionately conjoins the provocative images of the first century cross and the 20th century lynching tree, stating that the crucifixion was clearly a first century lynching. Both are symbols of the death of the innocent, mob hysteria, humiliation, and terror. They represent the worst in human beings. They both were public spectacles, shameful events, and instruments of punishment. Yet, they also reveal a thirst for life that refuses to let the worst determine our final meaning. They demonstrate that God can transform ugliness into beauty, into God's liberating presence. Cone focuses a chapter on Reinhold Niebuhr, perhaps the most well-known 20th century American theologian, in order to raise a question for white American Christians. How does a religious community that places so much emphasis on the cross not connect the suffering of Jesus to the suffering of black people? Cone concludes specifically that Niebuhr was a moderate on racial justice, and more generally, that white theologians rarely turn to the experiences of black people in order to reflect theologically. White theologians have written thousands of books on the cross in the last century without commenting on the lynching of black people. As a counterexample to Niebuhr, Cone examines Martin Luther King's understanding of the cross in another chapter. King also centered the cross in his sermons and writings, yet he was able to link the cross with the suffering of the powerless people for and to whom he spoke. King was able to find hope in the cross. In another chapter, Cone notices that black artists, who were mostly not church-attending Christians, were the ones able during this time of lynching to discern that the clearest image of the crucified Christ was the figure of an innocent black victim dangling from a lynching tree. These poets, novelists, painters, and dramatists, with their feet grounded in the tragic beauty of the black experience, saw the liberating power of the black Christ for suffering black people. Cone concludes his work by calling readers to a type of imagination that relates the message of the cross to one's own reality. He avers that God understands the suffering of blacks in a special way because God's Son was lynched in Jerusalem. He offers that the church needs to define itself today according to the gospel of Jesus' cross and where that cross is revealed today through racist and oppressive structures and actions. I believe the cross and the lynching tree and its author are worthy additions to our revered list of Grawemeyer winners. Tyler presented that to the Board of Trustees, and we unanimously voted to recommend that this book receive this award. Now, officially, this book receives the award. We don't give lifetime achievement awards, but we hope that this does serve as a recognition of your lifetime of work and study and scholarship.
Thank you.
James, the great thing about this award is you can wear it anytime you want. I think at Starbucks, if you wear this award and you have $8, you can get a cup of coffee.
Thank you, thank you,
Thank you.
thank you. I must say that I'm deeply honored to be included among the distinguished scholars who have received this award before me, including 3 of my colleagues. I also want to thank Dr. Michael Jinkins for taking the time to come here and present this award to me because I was unable to travel. I want to thank all of you who are present. Your presence inspires me. And I want to thank my colleagues, emeritus as well as those who are here, for all the support you give to me. I said in my last book, which is at press now, that The Cross and the Lynching Tree is my favorite book. I put my heart, soul, everything in that little text. And I'm pleased that so many people have recognized something of the spirit and the energy and the spirituality I put into it. So I want to thank you all now. I wish I could have gone to Louisville to give the lecture. But if you read my next book, it's in there. It's in there. That was the lecture I was going to give at Louisville. And you'll see it there. And I hope that it will tell you some insight into what went into writing The Cross and the Lynching Tree. And I have to say this, when I wrote the conclusion of my last book that's in press, it was in December, and I just said, this is it. I've completed my journey. And I left everything on the page. And it's Union Seminary is an amazing place. It's challenging. Oh yes, it's challenging. And I've had my challenging encounters in Union. But you know, it was never personal for me. Never. It was the issue. It was the principle. You win some, you lose some. And you probably should have. And I just wanna say that when I wrote that last conclusion, and just put that period there, I said, thank God, not many people can be as satisfied with their career as I am with mine. And basically I haven't written anything since then. But I want to thank all of you. I'll stop here, but I have to mention my daughter. She's such a wonderful, wonderful daughter. She takes care of me in the best way, keeps my spirit high. So I just had to know that. So I want to stop here and let you all get some repass over there. What are you going to get?